Cool.
Welcome, Jade.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm so good. Please tell everybody about who you are and what you do.
Hi, so my name's Jade. I'm the lead singer of the band Vanitas, and we're a sort of prog metal band that likes to combine modern metal riffs with big epic orchestra.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, that description. It's also really fun to hear the word Vanitas because, like, one time, Olaf from Enforcer was like, Joe, what's your favorite dinosaur? And I was like, a velociraptor. And he said, Velociraptor. And I was like, I do not say it like that. Now that I heard you say Vanitas, I'm like, Vanitas.
I mean, to be fair, we have a lot of people pronounce it differently. I say Vanitas, people say Vanitas. It doesn't really bother me. It's a Kingdom Hearts reference, so that's where we
Oh,
got the name from.
all right, awesome. Yeah, and the sound of your band, it's like some symphonic elements and sometimes kind of hardcore breakdowns as well.
Yeah, so we like to sort of take inspiration from bands like Devin Townsend, Periphery, Monuments, kind of the modern gent progressive metal scene, but then we also like to take inspiration from symphonic metal, power metal a little bit as well, to sort of create something a little bit different, hopefully.
Yeah, girls are so innovative. The like twists on genres that I hear from the people that I have on the show are so varied. It's interesting. I mean, I kind of like stopped listening to bands with out women in them like 2 years ago.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, it's like I have entered a whole new reality because now metal is only made by bands with women in them in my like real experience, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so like I don't know, I guess there it's just like very unconventional music comes from women. And I wonder if there's a relationship between just being unconventional to be, you know, a woman in a metal band. And
Yeah.
then you're like, oh well, like, what's the point in trying to like fit in? Like, might as well just do what I want. Like, you must have a do what I want attitude in order to be there anyway, I
Oh,
suppose.
definitely. I think it's definitely in 2024, there's so many amazing women in metal that you can pull from. But I think definitely kind of when I was a kid growing up, getting into metal, women in metal were far and few between, at least the ones you'd see on TV and in like
Right.
mainstream media for sure. And I'm glad that that culture is sort of shifting now.
Hmm.
But it's definitely true that I mean, at most live gigs I play in most settings, I am one of maybe one other woman, if any,
Hmm.
in that
Hmm.
venue. So I guess that kind of just force you to be a little bit different and stand out naturally.
Yeah. I'll have to drop you in a chat with a couple of other girls in the British Isles,
Hmm.
in London and in Manchester City, who maybe you can do some shows with or something like that so that you guys can just start taking over.
Oh yeah,
Um,
totally.
so yeah, and okay, so let's get into the question. Well, actually, no, I have some other things that you didn't talk about. You didn't mention that
Okay.
you are working with 1000 Lights to raise money for
Oh,
mental health on August 18th at Arena Birmingham.
yeah, so to talk about a few little bits I'm doing outside of Vanitas, so one of them is 1000 Lights. Honestly, it wasn't anything particularly special I did to join it. I just brought a ticket like everybody else because, I mean, why would I not want to raise money for an incredible charity and sing some really cool Linkin Park songs? So it seemed like a no-brainer, really. But essentially, it's going to be at Utilita Arena, which is one of Birmingham's biggest venues and the last venue that actually Linkin Park played at before Chester Bennington died. And we're going to be singing two songs live with 1,000 musicians for charity. And there's going to be some sort of big names in the metal scene on the stage, kind of leading the group. So it's just going to be hopefully a really fun time. And then outside of Vanitas, I'm a vocal teacher. That's my sort of day job, and I teach a vocal course at a college, and that's always really fun because I get to sort of pass my knowledge on to the next generation. And I think being a little
Interesting.
bit younger as a teacher myself, I sort of give them a little bit of an insight of what's the music industry is like now instead of what it was like 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And also, I really love nerding out about singing. My degree's in vocals, and I've always just loved learning every little singing technique I can do, teaching it to others, and finding cool new tips and tricks to sing, particularly in the rock and metal styles, but healthily. And that's when I started kind of delving into screaming vocals and that sort of thing as well.
I will also put you in touch with an opera singer in Chicago. Must
Oh, that would be very cool. I love a bit of opera.
Yeah. Um, so okay. Then let's go into the questions. Oh my gosh, what
Cool.
did I just do to my hair here? Okay. When did you first realize that you loved rock and metal music and that you wanted to create more of it?
Well, it's been a long journey. I would say when I was younger, maybe between ages 8 to 10, it kind of started off more with classic rock, Joan Jett, that sort of thing. And it was the first time I really saw a woman in rock. I think I have a vivid memory of seeing Skunk Nancy and
Ah,
seeing the
so
song
good.
Weak and being
Yeah.
like, women can do metal. And I know that rock, I know that sounds
Mhm.
really silly saying that now, but back then, there wasn't too many reference points for that. So just knowing it was an option really inspired me. And then obviously as a teenager, as a lot of us do, my kind of gateway into heavy music was I had a little emo phase. So I liked a lot of things like Paramore, My Chemical Romance. I had a major Black Veil Brides phase. That was a whole thing. And like I said, that became a bit of a gateway for me into the heavier stuff. And as I kind of progressed through my teenage years, I got really into progressive metal. I had like a phase in the middle where Incubus were a massive inspiration, and I used to listen to the Science album by Incubus just on a loop at school. And then it was my first ever band in school, like a school band. It was like an after school club. And the guitarist was really into progressive metal. And he was kind of one of those gatekeepy guys that was like,
Mm.
emo music's not real music, you know what I mean? But so every time I would be kind of going on about My Chemical Romance, whatever, he'd be like, oh, listen to some real music and would recommend these bands. And one day I was kind of like, do you know what? Fine, I will. And to this day, I still have a big love for emo music as well, but that did sort of open the floodgates for more progressive metal. So I got really into bands like Tesseract, Periphery, Monuments, Ginger, Spirit Box, and all bands like that. And that's kind of my main jam
Mhm.
to this day. And I feel like every day I'm finding new inspiring rock and metal artists, particularly women in the metal scene too, that I'm excited to listen to.
Yeah. Um, what city are you in the
I'm in Birmingham, UK,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which is like in the Midlands. So
Mhm.
it's not too far from Manchester. It's like south of Manchester.
Yep.
However, I'm originally from Nottingham. That's where I was born. So, like Robin Hood.
Yep.
Yeah, that where that place is. And I moved to Birmingham for university when I
Mhm.
turned 18. And then I've just sort of lived here ever since. That's where I formed Vanitas and sort of met my current partner. And I've just stayed in Birmingham. So
That is so great. I also love identifying one's home city by like the main character. So
yeah.
my main character is Benjamin Franklin, which I think is very
Ooh,
rock and roll.
very cool. Yeah.
He's if he was alive today, he would be in a metal band.
Oh,
Um,
totally.
can't even imagine, or he'd be a rapper. Um, but anyway, love that. So, if your music were a movie soundtrack, what would the movie be about?
Oh, I thought a lot about this one, and I think just because of the theming of Vanitas, that it would have to be a fantasy adventure film. Think like Lord of the Rings,
Mhm.
epic orchestral soundtrack, fantasy creatures,
Mm.
big epic boss battles,
Uh-huh.
and then the cliche realization that you had the power in you all along. That sort of thing is
Mhm.
definitely what I think the soundtrack would be.
Oh man, but can this like epic movie actually be like a new Robin Hood and it'll just be like super
Yeah,
cinematic and
that
I
would be awesome.
I mean that could be like they could have like awesome sword and crossbow fights and horse rides and like Robin Hood could be really hot and like muscular or something.
Yeah. Why not? Why not?
Okay, I love it. Um, okay, so is it who's the antagonist in that?
Ooh, good question. I think about that one. I'd say maybe the antagonist is like there's this kind of I don't know, maybe there's this wizard posing as the antagonist, but the
Mm.
antagonist were your negative thoughts all along, and then you overcame them. And I just like this idea of it being like this big epic battle on the outside, but really it's an inner conflict. And I
You
think
know,
a lot of Vanitas songs reflect that too. So
yeah, actually, I was about to say that like the title of your band makes perfect sense for your like storyline interests.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
okay, so if you could book your dream festival, who would you put on the lineup?
Well, I'm going to be slightly lazy for this one because I'm actually heading off to a festival tomorrow. Well, I'm going tomorrow. It starts on Friday. It's a festival in the UK. It's kind of an upcoming festival. It's called Radar Fest. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's actually in Manchester, and it's a festival that focuses on a lot of progressive metal, progressive rock music in the UK. A lot of kind of jazz fusiony stuff too, which I'm kind of into. And honestly, the Radar Festival lineup is like 90% what my dream festival lineup would be anyway. So I'm very excited to be going there. If I was to, I mean, I went to Radar Festival last year and they had like two of my favorite bands on the lineup, Periphery and Monuments, who I'll inevitably keep talking about. And then this year I'm really excited because they have a band called Dirty Loops on the lineup, which are not rock or metal at all. They're a jazz fusion band, but I never thought I'd be able to see them live, and the fact that they're coming to the UK is just super exciting to me. So yeah, I would basically steal the Radar Festival lineup and swap out a few bands, and that would be my dream festival.
Okay, so for people who would like to see this dream festival happen, where can they find some tickets and such?
My dream festival,
Right, the
or
one that you're playing. Yeah, where like when people actually want to go to this real thing, this real
oh, if
radar
they want
festival.
to go to actual Radar Festival, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
if you just type in Radar Festival UK Manchester, they have a website and stuff. And I think there's still tickets on sale, even though it starts Friday. But I mean, simultaneously, it's my dream festival to go to as an audience member, and it's also like a bucket list thing that I'd like to play that festival with my band Vanitas one day.
Ah,
So fingers crossed, hopefully that can happen one time.
why
We'll see.
not? Why not? All right. So, looking back on things you've done, what was a big decision you made that turned out to be a great choice?
I thought about this one, and I'd say musically, definitely learning to scream
Mhm.
because it's something I put off for so many years just because, again, there isn't much female representation. At least there wasn't when I started out. I know there is now. Lots of female representation, so I didn't know where to start. And there was a lot of like misogyny online, like women can't scream, or
Mm.
oh, the female voice just isn't tailored for that,
Ah.
which is complete bullcrap. Like it just really is. And I'm really glad I started to learn, and I just sort of wish I started sooner.
Hmm,
Really, that would be my only regret there is I wish I started it sooner.
that's so funny. Um I don't know, it's like, why would I, like, care to prove myself to people I'm not impressed by?
Yeah.
And, like, I actually like, when, like, emo music was, like, a bigger thing, I remember this band was like, "Can you scream?" So I did some parts, and they were like, "That sounds great." And I was like, "And I never wanna do that. That's not interesting to me, like, for my music." And
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
it's like, why is that, like, a gatekeeper's, like, thing to be like, "Oh, women can't do that." They absolutely can, but sometimes they're not even interested in doing it at all. So, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know, it's
it's
like it's
I
such a
think
weird dick measuring contest to be like, "Can you scream?"
it's so weird as well. And I almost had the opposite experience where I wanted to scream for so long, but because I couldn't and because I felt like it was too late for me to learn, and when people was like, "Oh, can you scream?" My reaction was like, "Oh, I'm not really interested. I don't really want to." And
Oh,
secretly, I
yeah.
did want to. I was
Mm,
just sort of scared of delving into this world of, like you said, dick measuring contests.
yeah.
And then when I started screaming, I actually found a lot more women that do scream and
Mm.
sort of reached out to them for advice and tips. And obviously, as a singing teacher myself, I think a long term goal of mine is to get to the point where I feel like I can teach that technique safely to other women who might be kind of like me, a bit lost, wanting to learn, not knowing where to start,
Yeah.
and trying to remove I guess, the stereotypes that, oh, you can hurt your voice. And I mean, if you do it properly, you can do it safely. And women are just as capable as men. So that would be a long term goal of mine for sure.
it all ties back into your movie plot too, because
Yeah.
you actually could always scream. You just like hadn't started doing it yet. And so just like in the movie, it's like it's only a negative voice that you have to like boss battle
Yeah.
with hot Robin Hood. And oh, guess what? I always could scream. I just didn't do it yet. That's all. Just didn't show you.
Totally. And I also feel like with what you're saying there, it's funny because I do that with Vanitas a lot. There's been multiple occasions where I've written a vocal part for Vanitas and I'm not actually really properly able to sing it yet. Like I can sing it in bits for tracking in the studio. And
Mhm,
then I have this realization of shit, I've got to do this live.
mhm,
And then I have to sort of work backwards and reteach the part to myself. And I
mhm.
actually did that with screaming. The first time I screamed in a Vanitas song, I sort of did it on a whim in the studio and then was like, okay, I need to learn how to recreate that healthily now because I've got to do it on stage. And I did. It was stressful, but I did.
She
So,
always could. She always could.
and it came
And
together.
yeah, cool. I love that. And then passing the discovery on to other people that are looking for that within themselves. Love it. Okay, so and also I am so excited to play the vinyl game with you just based on everything you've been saying so far. I have the correct selection for you.
Okay.
So, this is also a great question for you. What is your favorite gear in stage wear? Specifically stage
Oh.
wear because you have great stage looks.
Thank you. I never feel like I have enough. I always want more, but
Mhm,
I'm running out of space in my wardrobe.
mhm.
Stage wear, I mean, I rotate between certain favorites. My current favorite stage wear is I have this mesh top. It's from actually a local Birmingham clothing brand called Broken Bonds Co. And it's like a mesh black top. It's a little bit cropped and it has bejeweled flames on it,
I
and it's
saw
amazing.
it on your Instagram and it is amazing.
Yes, and the only problem with it is because it's mesh, it gets and it's long sleeves, it gets really hot on stage in the summer. So a lot of the sometimes if it's a gig and it's a hot day, I have to sort of weigh up whether it's worth wearing or not because it looks amazing, but sometimes I get two songs in and I'm sweating so much. But I do really love that top.
Yeah, might be it's like when you play a winter festival, it'll be a perfect piece for that. What about gear?
Hopefully. Oh, stage gear. I mean, as a singer, and I know like a lot of singers are the same. I'm not like super big or nerdy on gear. Like if you ask my other band members, they could that this question would take an hour. But for me, I'd say the main piece of gear that has saved me is my in-ears. We wasn't a band that used in-ears when we started, and then when we switched to in-ears, it's just amazing because a
Mhm,
lot of kind of small venues in the UK, you've only got like the stage monitor to hear yourself, and
mhm.
you can't really it's really loud metal band and we use a lot of like we do a lot of 7 and 8 string songs, so really low chugs, you can't hear anything. Now that I have in-ears, I can just hear myself clearly all the time. I have a click in my ear, I
Hot.
have cues to remind me when to say things,
Mhm,
and like I have parts of the backing track in my ear to help me
mhm.
cue, and it's just amazing. It just makes gigging way less stressful.
That makes so much sense when you have symphonic elements in a metal band, when you're doing
Yeah.
anything with, I don't know, just like if you want to incorporate strings or horns or organ, and you just can't hire a, you know, pianist that day or whatever. So, yeah, are you a fan of Cradle of Filth?
I actually have a funny story there. Um,
You
I am
tell.
I am a fan of Cradle of Filth, and I don't know if you knew one of their recently ex guitarist Richard Shaw. But
Well,
he's from the same hometown as me, and he actually was the guitar teacher at my secondary school, which is like high school. And he was my first ever guitar teacher, and he
ah,
actually mentored my first kind of my school band, right? And when he went off to do the audition for Cradle of Filth, it was during the time he was teaching me guitar lessons, and I just remember him saying like, "I'm gonna miss our guitar lesson next week because I've got to do this audition." And then obviously he got in and went off and toured the world. And I actually was able to reconnect with Richard just before I turned 18 because I was looking at where to study for university, and he kind of advised me. And he's the reason I moved to Birmingham because he was like, there's this really cool uni I used to work at. You should go there. And I was like, okay. And then more recently, in my work as a singing teacher, I actually was able to bring Richard Shaw into my college to do a masterclass for my students. So it was a real full circle moment, really, and that was a really lovely moment to have. And I know he, like, obviously wears the face paint, looks super scary on stage, but
Mhm.
he's the most lovely guy in metal that you'll ever meet, and I'll always sing his praises because he's just really lovely.
Yeah, we can all love Cradle of Filth for including women in their work. So they're approved. They pass the vibe check.
They do
So,
pass the check.
um, okay, so what kind of in-ear monitors are you using?
Oh, you've called me out here. I
Oops,
need to. They're literally under my desk.
grab them.
I think it's one of those things where I asked on the spot, I'm gonna forget what they are. I've got this Shure. I can literally just show you.
Sure. Yeah.
My,
Show and
my
tell.
guitarist is gonna watch this back and be shaking his head at me. But I've got these. I even got them to be purple, so they're on brand.
Oh
So I've got these
yes.
purple Shure ones at the moment. Um, yeah, and they. I can't remember the exact make or model. I'm really bad with tech, to be honest. Like, I know how they work, I know how to set them up at a gig, and that's kind of as far as it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do really enjoy them.
So I got a pro tip from one of the other rock goddesses about how she went and got a custom belt made so she can hook her plug-in gear to her belt on the day she wants to wear a skirt. And I thought
Nice.
that was very rock goddess.
I need to
Um,
do that.
right? Yeah, I got. We all gotta like pass around the tips.
Totally.
These boys would never think, oh, I should make a belt for my in-ear monitors.
No.
And they wouldn't get like purple ones because they're on brand like that. Details, ladies, details. So, we love. What's your favorite way to take care of yourself after a long, hard day of recording in the studio, being on tour, or writing at practice?
Oh, that's a really good question. For me, honestly, it would just be in terms of vocal health. I like to use vocal zones and I will just drink lots of green tea. Green tea is my go-to. A lot of people they do warm-ups, but they forget to warm down. So I tend to do a warm down, which is basically just some short vocal exercises. And then in terms of mentally, I love nothing more than to just veg out in front of the TV, watch my favorite comfort shows. I'm a child at heart, and I think people see the kind of gothic metal goddess exterior and go, "Oh, she must really like goth things and horror movies." And it couldn't be further from the truth. I watch children's TV shows all the time, and I actually am scared of horror movies, and I never watch horror movies. So more likely, I'm watching things like Bob's Burgers is my comfort show, and I will just sit in front of the TV, watch that, and chill my brain out.
That is like an adult cartoon. Okay, but please tell me more about the vocal warm down. Nobody's
Oh,
ever
okay.
said anything about that before.
Okay, so how I do a vocal warm down is essentially the same as you do the start of a warm up. So I have sort of three steps to a good warm up, which is physical warm up, so stretching, etc. What I call semi-occluded vocal exercises, if you've heard of them. So that's things where your mouth's partially closed. So lip trills, brrr, that sort of noise. And then you have your kind of regular voiced warm-ups like your arpeggios, etc. So for a warm down, I'll just do the first two parts. I'll do a physical stretch. I'll just stretch my body. And then I'll just do some lip trills, brrr, normally on a siren, just a
Hmm.
descending siren, brrr, just to kind of wind down my voice.
Hmm.
I've gotten to the point now where I'm so comfortable just doing vocal exercises anywhere because a lot of venues in the UK, they don't have dressing rooms, they don't have green rooms. You're just sort of in some back alley or just stood backstage doing your vocal warm-ups. Then I would just make all of these weird vocal noises anywhere. I actually had a gig once. It's even funnier when I have to do my scream warm-ups. When I warm up my screams, I just basically do open vowels, like A, E, I, O, U on a
Mhm,
scream.
mhm.
And I did this gig in London earlier this year, and it was a tiny venue, and they had like a tiny bathroom, and there was just nowhere to warm up. So I literally stood on the street corner, like full glam, just doing scream warm ups, and I had quite a few people kind of just giving me a second look, like, is she okay? But you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. I I love that a vocal warm down. I've never heard anybody talk about that before. And like Tina Turner didn't do vocal warm ups because it didn't work for her. Like, I mean, Tina Turner almost like speak sings and goes flat on purpose and like does
Mm.
stuff like that. So it's like just like interesting to hear about like the different ways that individual bodies, like everybody has a different body, like some warm-ups work for some people and some for others, but nobody ever talked about a warm down before. That's so fun. Thank you for telling everybody
Yeah,
about that. I know girls
no
are gonna
problem.
love that. Everybody go take a class. Take a class with Jade, enroll in school in the UK, just live it up, people. It's like advice that I would take. Anyway, so then you also said something about horror movies, and I have pondered this before. I love like an Eastern European, like sort of USSR era, like magical, mystical, special effects kind of horror movie, but I don't like gore. And some
Hmm.
people do, and some women do.
Yeah.
But I read this thing that because women are so have like you know I don't want to generalize, but like a capacity to um like feel for others and like be very sympathetic and like feel pain for like a child or something that's suffering, like an ugly dog that needs to be adopted. Um
Yeah.
it's harder for women to watch gore because we actually are experiencing it more deeply.
Um, I don't know if I'd agree with that one. I think I've seen women on all ends of the spectrum. I've seen women that absolutely love gore, can't get enough of it. I've
Hmm.
seen women that, like you said, quite empathetic, can't bear to watch it. I'm more on that end of the spectrum. I just can't deal with gore. And some that are kind of a little bit in the middle.
Hmm.
I guess everyone has different tastes, and it just depends on your environment and your interests, I guess.
That is so interesting. It's so hard for me to conceive of like some of the stuff like stuff in Saw. Like
Yeah. I mean, me too. I know there's people that do like it. It's not for me, but if
yeah.
that's the thing, then that's all good.
So we'll have to find that article I read and let them know that the generalizations were too broad. So okay, and then one more question. It's kind of a
Okay.
surprise question. It's quite new to the list, and it's when you're working through changes that occur, like um, I guess I want to preface this by saying I've had a lot of guests come on and express some shame about changes happening in the environment around their band, whether they're like
Mm,
beloved member has decided to become a parent and moved on from the band, or the album art for their EP has been delayed, and so the whole release is delayed, or a really important tour has been canceled. What
yeah.
kind of mantras or behaviors or habits have helped you when you have faced a surprising change?
I guess for me, I don't know how to phrase this in a mantra, but I would say that trying your best and then whatever happens that's outside of your control, it's outside of your control. At least you can be confident in knowing that you tried your best. A piece of advice that always helps me is half-assing is better than no-assing. And I think as someone who's had sort
It's your
of
mantra?
not a mantra, but like I guess as someone who's had up and down mental health in the past, it's kind of like sometimes when you have those days where you wake up and everything's just more difficult than usual, you can't always do your best. If you can do your best, that's great. Do your best, of course. But if you wake up and it's one of those days where even getting out of bed is hard, if you at least half-ass, if you at least try, that is better than nothing at all. You know, if you have to send that banned email, you know, sending it from your phone in bed is better than not sending it at all. And that's kind of helped carry me through when I've felt burnt out or stressed with the amount of workload. And I think, like you said, being, at least for me, being in a small independent band, everything you see from Vanitas is normally me behind a computer screen, you know, doing all the social media posts or sending emails or, you know, planning tours and gigs and whatnot. And I think sometimes it's important to remember that I can't do it all at once every day. Sometimes I'm gonna have off days, and that's okay as well.
Yeah. I mean, I love that, and I also think that if you won't use that as your mantra, I'm still gonna adopt it from you.
Yeah,
Half-ass
go for it.
better than no ass. It's true.
Yeah.
Little booties need love too. All right. So Oh, and then do you want to say anything? I know it's not your gear, but
Mm.
Riffy Strings. You guys work with Riffy Strings.
Yeah, we work with Riffy Strings. I mean, our guitarist could probably say more on that, but essentially, there's a link in our bio, and if you follow it, you can get discounted guitar strings if you need them. What I would also say from a band front as Vanitas is we have our brand new EP, Chaos Theory, and it's coming out next Friday. We're going to celebrate the release next Saturday with our hometown EP launch show in Birmingham, UK. And then into August and September, we're going out on tour around the UK to celebrate the release. So lots of exciting things coming up for us.
Yeah, and you have all of the show dates and links for tickets in your band bio on
Yep.
Instagram. And where else can people look for news and things from you?
So we have our own website, vanitasband.com, and then of course all the social media. So YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and for all of those platforms, we are at Vanitas Band for everything. You can normally spot us through either my face or that everything is normally purple.
Branding, branding.
Randy.
Okay, let's play the vinyl game. You know
Okay.
how to play. I'm going to hold up two pieces of
Ooh.
vinyl, and you will choose one you want to talk about or ask a question about. Kelvin or
Oh,
Stevie Nicks?
okay.
Witchy.
Oh, Stevie Nicks. Stevie
Nice.
Nicks, for
Why
sure.
Stevie?
Because when I said that when I was a kid, I kind of started my love of rock and metal with a lot of classic rock. Stevie Nicks was definitely a big part of that, and I love her voice, so that's why I had to go with Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, and you know she's in full lavender on this cover. Lavender velvet leg warmers over lavender platforms. So very Vanitas, really.
She's slaying, absolutely
Van
slaying.
Vanitas. Um, okay. Fairport Convention or Kate Bush? People for
Oh, Kate Bush, definitely Kate Bush. As a progressive fan, she's definitely like I love me a lot of pop, especially any sort of pop that's out there or progressive, and Kate Bush was definitely pushing boundaries.
she did extreme vocals before
Mm,
anybody else because in Get Out of My House she does pig gutturals.
amazing. We love some pig girls.
Yeah, she says Eeyore, like she is a stubborn donkey. She just goes ahead and makes some pig guttural vocals right there before any other band did. Bonnie Tyler or
Mm.
Pat Benatar?
That's really tough. I'm gonna say Pat Benatar because I have vivid memories of covering a lot of her songs in secondary school for like singing exams I had to do. So definitely that one.
Now we all owe it to ourselves to have more photo shoots. We're all gonna blink and be in our 70s, and like I feel like we're really being called to do photo shoots in dresses with birds.
Yeah.
So I have two birds, so I have no excuse for not
No,
having.
you really don't. Where's them bird photos?
Just yeah, where are my bird photos? Santa or burning witches?
Burning Witches. We love a good witchy vibe. So of course I'm gonna go with Burning Witches.
Also another great vocalist. Very witchy. All right. On tour with many of my friends right now in the US. Burning Witches is touring with Lady Beast, Sanhedrin, Bloodstar. They might even be doing a show with Savage Master. But
Hmm.
and then these are very modern. Surprise.
Ooh.
Lizzo and Demi Lovato.
I'm gonna say Lizzo because I know more of her songs and I'd say I'm more of a Lizzo fan just because like bringing plus size women to the front is something that I think's amazing. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a plus size woman, but I'm definitely not a skinny gal. So I sort of sit in that mid-range area and just seeing more bodies that are closer to mine in the media is pretty damn cool.
Yeah, she has some great looks as well.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
she has an all-girl band, as
Hmm.
does Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato has Nita Hurricane, also known as Nita Strauss. I, for the longest
I love
time,
her.
was so confused about what which one was in her band until it was finally clarified that actually those are the same person. And I was like,
Oh.
I know, I was like, please use one name. But Demi Lovato's whole band is like real underground metal rock star rock goddesses. So it's cool because they're like people who are very integrated in metal, and they're not
Yeah.
like sort of aloof um, hired guns that we don't have like connections to. So her band slaps, and she is so amazing as a singer. Like her, you got to see her live, like recordings of her singing live, because I cannot believe the holes in my head, eyes and ears. But yeah. Well, thank
Cool.
you so much for your time today, Jade, and
No,
good
thank you
luck.
so much for having me.
Yeah, enjoy your tour and your album release show. I'm sure it's gonna be great. And when you remember what the in your monitor brand model is, send it to me and I'll put it in this show's notes.
Cool. I could literally probably find it out straight after this call and I'll send it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Have a good